Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight.
The opposition continues their call for the resignation of 2 cabinet ministers.
The Deputy Prime Minister responds to environmentalist concerns about oil drilling in the Bahamas.
The Tourism Minister hints at a further delay in the sale of the Grand Lucayan Resort.
Our News is brought to you by Alive.
Welcome to Our News and thanks for joining us. I'm Kyle Joaquin. Topping news tonight. Following a 2-week boycott of Parliament, opposition leader Philip Davis says Progressive Liberal Party members of Parliament will return to the House of Assembly tomorrow. Davis says the opposition has also written to CARICOM and other international bodies on what he termed the egregious conduct of 2 cabinet ministers involved in the Frank Smith trial. Jillian Gray reports.
The opposition leader said PLPs are ending their boycott of Parliament tomorrow. However, he said they are not ending their calls for the resignation of 2 cabinet ministers.
I haven't satisfied myself that the point has been sufficiently made that our democracy is in peril and that the time has come for us to fend for the restoring of that democracy by us maintaining our presence in Parliament.
On February 14th, PLP members of Parliament stormed out of the House of Assembly in protest of what they say is judicial victimization by the Minnis administration. Opposition senators joined the boycott 1 day later. Members of the governing party have called the opposition's boycott reprehensible and a dereliction of duty. However, PLP leaders insisted they would not return until their point was sufficiently made. Davis said the opposition has also written to the Secretary General of both CARICOM and the Commonwealth Secretariat to bring to their attention the involvement of 2 cabinet ministers in the high-profile Frank Smith trial.
I wrote to the Secretary General of CARICOM requesting their review of this matter and to bring it to the attentions of the heads of government of CARICOM to determine how they could assist in restoring and as it reversing what I call the evil that attacks our democracy today.
Following the acquittal of former PLP Senator Frank Smith, the opposition called for Health Minister Dr. Dwayne Sands and National Security Minister Marvin Dames to resign. They cited the ruling by the Chief Magistrate who decried the 2 cabinet ministers' egregious conduct. Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis promised to address this matter during an F&M event in Grand Bahama last week. However, he did not. Davis says this reflects poorly on Minnis' leadership.
It inspires concerns about his complete understanding of what it is to govern and the importance of the pillars of democracy and the separation of those pillars.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Jillian Gray.
Well, PLP MP Paiswell Forbes and Health Minister Dr. Dwayne Sands defending their trip to Mangrove Key Andrews yesterday amid unrelenting PLP calls for Sands to resign. The health minister suggested critics are trying to score political brownie points. Meanwhile, opposition leader Philip Davis called Forbes' decision to travel with Sands an unforced error. Bonnie Toot has that.
For more than 2 weeks, the PLP has called for the resignations of Health Minister Dr. Dwayne Sands and National Security Minister Marvin Dames over their involvement in the Frank Smith trial. But here were Sands and leader of opposition business in Parliament Paiswell Forbes smiling for the camera together yesterday on their flight to Mangrove Key.
We needed to go down to look firsthand at the state of the healthcare facilities in South Andros and Mangrove Key. I would have made it very clear to the Member of Parliament that we would be traveling and invited him to join us, and he agreed to come down. I think this is an issue for the PLP. This has nothing to do with the work of the Ministry of Health.
Forbes, who is the MP for South Andros and Mangrove Key, told reporters there's nothing problematic about his trip with Sands, whom he says is carrying out his duty. However, their recent trip together has raised more than a few eyebrows, considering Forbes was among the 4 PLP MPs who walked out of Parliament on February 14th and continue to call for Sands to step down. Opposition leader Philip Davis called it an unforced error, adding he raised this concern with Forbes.
I spoke to Mr. Paisel Forbes about that travel because it did raise the questions that you have put to me. And he indicated that he did that in the interest of his constituents. It is what I call an unforced error, but he is, in his view, he was looking out for the betterment of his constituents. And for that, we cannot fault him, we being in what I call a representative democracy.
Sands has come under heavy fire after it was revealed that he awarded a $1.8 million contract to the prosecution's star witness Barbara Hanna 3 months after former PLP Senator Frank Smith was charged. In her ruling, Chief Magistrate Joy Ann Ferguson Pratt said the circumstances of that contract raised a specter of impropriety. Sands claims his critics are seeking to score political brownie points.
As far as I'm concerned, it has always been about putting politics aside. This has been about taking care of the job that I've been asked to perform on behalf of the Bahamian people. I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. And if people want to score political brownie points in the process, so be it.
However, Davis made it clear they will never stop calling for Sands and Dames to resign.
They need to step down, and we will not relent on that quest. And we are asking for them to step down. The Prime Minister promised that he would have addressed those issues in his rally in Freeport or his court meeting in Freeport, but failed to do so. Very soon we have to be questioning his moral authority to continue in office because of his failure and seemingly cloaking of these two ministers.
Reporting for our News, I'm Vonique Tude.
All right, thanks, Vonique. Health Minister Dr. Dwayne Sands confirming a case of chikungunya in the Bahamas. He didn't provide any details on the patient, but said this is a homegrown case of chikungunya that was confirmed through lab testing.
All of these diseases that are carried by the Aedes aegypti mosquito, whether we're talking dengue, chikungunya, malaria, thankfully we haven't had a significant problem with malaria. As a matter of fact, we haven't seen a homegrown case of malaria in a while. But yes, we have had a single case of chikungunya confirmed by laboratory testing.
Chikungunya is an illness caused by a virus that spreads through the bite of an Aedes aegypti mosquito, which is found throughout the Bahamas. Symptoms include high fever and severe joint pains in the hands and feet, which can persist for several weeks. Several cases were reported in the Bahamas back in 2014. Sands was asked if he was concerned about the illness spreading.
Yes. When we talk about chikungunya or dengue or any mosquito-borne illness, we are concerned as to whether or not this is imported or homegrown, because it then determines whether or not we have infected mosquitoes in country. And I can say, unfortunately, that this was a homegrown case of chikungunya. So the Department of Environmental Health have stepped up their adulticide and larvicide campaigns.
Tourism Minister Dionisio de Aguilar revealing it could take longer than anticipated for a sale of the Grand Lucayan Resort to be finalized. This as outspoken Pine Ridge MP Frederick McAlpine criticized the time it is taking the Minister administration to sell the resort. Jared Higgs reports.
It's been months since government made the controversial decision to purchase the shuttered hotel in an effort to save hundreds of jobs and revitalize Grand Bahama's ailing economy. However, with around 60 interested buyers, de Aguilar said the process of selecting one and completing the sale is expected to take a bit more time.
I think I've gone on record to say that hopefully by the end of the second quarter of this year, we should be in a position to announce something substantial. But, you know, when you get, sometimes it's a curse. When you get so many people, then it takes even longer. So if it was just 3 people, then it would be easy. But it's 60 or whatever the chairman said, and it may even take a little bit longer. But anyway, we'll see.
De Aguilar has said previously that government hopes to sell the hotel by the end of the second quarter of 2019. Now his comments follow criticisms by Pine Ridge MP Frederick McAlpine, who slammed claims that 60 potential buyers have submitted bids for the resort.
60 people or 60 organizations want to buy the hotel, and you think we're impressing Grand Bahama by you telling us that? We're not impressed with that. We'll be impressed when it's sold.
Government purchased the Grand Lucayan Resort for its full asking price of $65 million last September. Initially, officials said the storm-damaged hotel would be sold within 6 months. A few months later, Diaghilev said the timeline had been extended. Despite government's confidence in the amount of interest the hotel has received, McAlpine believes a buyer could have been selected more quickly.
You keep touting and telling us that you have 60 people or 60 groupings that wants to buy the hotel. But why you still have it? If I put a car out on anywhere in the Bahamas, I know we do it in Grand Bahama, so I assume they do it in Nassau. They put a car out, they put for sale sign and put a number. If 4 people call me to buy the car, why am I still going to have the car?
Here's how Diaghilev responded to that.
When people express an interest, there's a process. You have a lot of people expressing an interest. You have to gather in all that information. You have to sift through it to see which ones are serious and not serious. Then you have to begin a negotiation process to see whether people, on what terms they want to do it. This takes time. This is not something that you can flip a switch and it happens.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Jared Higgs.
All right, thanks, Jared. Well, the government was reportedly taken aback by the latest travel advisory sent out by the U.S. Embassy, warning its citizens visiting the Bahamas to exercise an increased level of caution. Tourism Minister Dionisio Diaghilev telling reporters today that the Minister administration will push back.
We thought that a lot of the verbiage in the advisory was an exaggeration.
In its latest travel advisory, the U.S. Embassy warned its citizens traveling to the Bahamas to be mindful and careful, saying, violent crimes such as burglaries, armed robberies, and sexual assault is common, even during the day and in tourist areas. Although the Family Islands are not crime-free, the vast majority of crime occurs on New Providence and Grand Bahama. The embassy again warning against the use of recreational watercraft like jet skis. But Diaghilev said the government feels this warning was a bit much.
We're a little surprised by that, a little dismayed by that, because our crime statistics have decreased so substantially. We would have thought that it would have been a better rating. I mean, to lump us in the same category as Mexico and Jamaica, to us seems a little harsh.
Americans have also been advised to avoid over-the-hill areas and Arawak Key, especially at night. And in the event they are held up in a robbery, they're advised to not physically resist. The tourism minister pointed out that this latest advisory is almost identical to the one sent out last year. He said government will inquire and push back.
The Ministry of National Security is looking to exactly how many foreign visitors experienced some sort of crime activity or crime incident. We feel that it's negligible, and so we're going to push back a little bit as we are now dialoguing with the U.S. Embassy, and we're going to push back.
Now, there are 4 levels of advisories issued to Americans for foreign travel on the site, the lowest being exercise normal precautions, and the highest being do not travel. The Bahamas falls at number 2, just under reconsider travel.
I think it's important for us to continue to present our case. Obviously, this takes time, and we obviously did not convince them that there was improvement, but the statistics, numbers speak for themselves. There was a decrease in crime, and really start to focus on crime that was directed towards foreign visitors. I mean, it's our belief it was negligible.
Acting Prime Minister Peter Turnquest is responding to concerns expressed over Bahamas Petroleum Company being given the go-ahead for exploratory oil drilling in Bahamian waters. Turnquest says the decision was made long before the Minister administration took office. With more on this, here's Jasmine Brown.
The acting prime minister says the fact of the matter is the oil drilling issue was previously decided on by the former administration.
The only thing I would say to that there are obligations that a previous administration has locked us into.
However, BPC took steps in its push to drill for oil when it applied for environmental authorization through the Ministry of Environment and Housing last year. This came after months of speculation regarding whether or not the government would move ahead with renewing BPC's license and whether the exploratory well would get the stamp of approval. BPC announced recently that the government gave the green light to work towards drilling an exploratory oil well before the end of 2020. A senior government official confirmed the approval. The latest development comes after government has been largely quiet on the issue of BPC and oil drilling. Turnquest was pressed on specifics concerning the latest BPC development. However, he insisted he could not say much on the matter.
I would leave that to the responsible ministers to talk about.
On Monday, co-founder of Re-Earth, Sam Doncom, insisted she is disgusted, while Save the Bay's chairman Joe Darville said the move comes as an amazing surprise, considering several environmentalists met with senior government officials to express their grave concerns over oil drilling in Bahamian waters. Darville added that they were assured that a referendum would take place to determine whether the government would move forward with oil drilling. Turnquest says those concerns are not going unnoticed by the Minutes administration.
We understand the concern of the environmentalists, and we certainly will do all we can to ensure that we put in place the protective mechanisms if in fact they do drill, and we'll see what happens.
In 2005, BPC began its negotiations with the Christie administration for its various permits and licenses to look for oil in the country's territorial waters. However, in 2010, the Ingham administration placed a moratorium on new oil exploration or drilling licenses following the disastrous Deepwater Horizon oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico. Reporting for our News, I'm Jasmine Brown.
All right, thanks, Jasmine. Still to come, the Immigration Department owed millions in work permit fees. Plus, the DPM response to Moody's call for government to rein in spending. Stay tuned.